Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
From the first trailer that dropped for the Eternals, I knew instantly that I had no interest in this movie. Of course, I always encourage people to form their own opinions because that's the only way you should really watch any movie. If what you've seen so far looks intriguing to you, then you should go out and watch it and decide for yourself. But if these early reviews are any indication, this movie is exactly what I thought it would be.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Now, I'm not one to put much stock in professional critics' opinions. They typically have ulterior motives as it pertains to how they would like the public to view these movies that they're reviewing. I've also been very vocal about the unrealistic, universal praise that MCU films typically get. Why? Because from my experiences, these movies are typically formulaic and do not allow filmmakers to work to their full potential. Everything has to fit within the MCU mold, and that limits the creativity that's allowed to be expressed in these movies.
That makes sense.
So now, when I start to see negative reviews trickling in for a Marvel film, I feel like the field is finally catching on to what I've been saying basically since Age of Ultron. Now, this movie will have a built-in excuse because it doesn't feature big-name characters like Iron Man or Captain America, so people will say that it's hard to get viewers invested in these characters that they have no knowledge of. And I actually agree with that to an extent. But from my perspective, a lot of the negative things that they're saying about the Eternals are the same problems that have existed in the MCU for years now, even if they are just slight variations of those problems. So let's get into some of these early reviews and you can see what I mean. The film currently sits at a 72% on the garbage tier website that is Rotten Tomatoes, which makes it only the third worst rated MCU film on that site of all time. Just to think that a rating as high as 72% is the third lowest in the MCU should tell you all you need to know about the horrible and misleading rating system that this site has.
Fuck you!
I'm sorry, but there's just no way you can convince me there isn't some kind of bias at play here. The first review comes from Pete Hammond of Deadline. He states, director Chloe Zhao seamlessly uses expert filmmaking skills weaned on a smaller scale to great effect on a huge canvas. Now that sounds like a positive review on the surface, but he clearly states that her skills are being weaned. Most likely, like I said, to fit within the MCU guidelines. This is the issue right here because they're taking a problem and trying to spin it into a positive.
Why?
Think about this for a second. An Academy Award winning director is being limited in what she can do in a movie. This is like when you fire Edward Norton simply because he wants a better script for the Hulk. As a studio, why would you want to limit your talent like that? I don't understand it. Another review from Justin Chang of the Los Angeles Times said that this is one of the more interesting Marvel movies, but hopefully the least interesting movie Chloe Zhao will ever make.
No shit.
This is again giving Marvel movies a pass for being uninteresting from a pure filmmaking perspective. I really don't care how it stacks up with other Marvel movies. If you want to impress me, you have to make a movie that stands out among all movies, period. Another review from Rodrigo Perez of The Playlist says, a convoluted cosmic misfire and one of Marvel's dullest efforts in years. Now again, I would argue that a lot of their efforts are a lot duller than they typically get credit for.
Fuck me, right?
But I will admit, from a pure visual perspective, this movie looks like the equivalent of cinematic NyQuil. At least the other Marvel movies had a colorful, cartoonish feel to them, and I don't fault them for possibly trying something new here, but the reality of the situation is that it's probably not as new as it would seem. It's probably more along the lines of the same concept, just with a different paint job. Just nothing about this movie or the way it's being advertised looks remotely appealing to me.
Very well, we're gonna do.
And then we come to possibly my favorite review of a Marvel film ever, outside of one of my own, of course. This comes from David Ehrlich of IndieWire. And he basically states in his Eternals review what I've been saying since about as far back as I can remember. Quote, can't these movies do anything else? Is it too much to ask that the most dominant kind of cinema on the planet shake things up and challenge itself in a more significant way? You hit the nail right on the head, Dave. Like it or not, superhero movies are in fact the most dominant form of cinema on the planet. And they're being produced by companies with endless amounts of resources. Yet they continue to produce them in the most lazy way possible. They treat them like products on a conveyor belt line, making them one after the other, having release dates before the movie's even written, with little to no artistic effort whatsoever. Why do they do this? Because people will watch them anyway. Why put effort into something that already has a built-in fan base and doesn't question anything that you do?
Then why the fuck didn't you say so?
And again, I'm not saying this to be mean or hateful to people who enjoy these movies. But at the very least, can we stop acting like these movies are cinematic masterpieces? I would actually agree with people if all they said was, these are fun superhero movies. It's when people start talking about how these movies are contributing to the art form in a meaningful way, that's where you lose me.
I'm having trouble.
From my perspective, they just aren't bringing anything new to the table. And because of their success, you get companies like Sony who are now trying to copy them. And all we have in the end is a bunch of forgettable movies that offer nothing in the way of rewatchability. Here's a good example. I watched the new Dune this weekend, and you can go check out my review if you please.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
But as I stated in my review, that movie looks and feels like the people involved actually cared about what they were creating. They had love for the source material, and you see that in the final product. They assembled the best talent they could, from directing to acting to composing. And they actually created a living piece of art that Dune fans could be proud of.
I like it a lot.
Something that people can revisit down the line and possibly gain something new out of. The biggest complaint that I've heard about Dune is that it's long and that it's slow in some spots. That very criticism is an extension of how people view movies now, thanks to the MCU. Those slow moments that these people are talking about are where the story is being developed. If there's not an explosion or a fight scene or a joke every few minutes, then people check out.
Have you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
Based on these early reviews of The Eternals, it appears that that movie is everything that Dune is not. The Eternals looks generic, boring, and hollow, and devoid of any real artistic value. Dune is an actual piece of art with blockbuster elements, mixed with real filmmaking techniques that a talented filmmaker was allowed to execute without restrictions. That's why I enjoy Dune, and that's why I have no interest in The Eternals. And for those that say you can't really judge a movie before you see it, in most cases that's true, but track record is a real thing. And Disney Marvel plays everything so safe, why would I expect this movie to be any different? It's been 20 plus years of this, and I haven't enjoyed an MCU movie in some time. So do you think Eternals is really going to be the movie to change my mind? There wasn't even anything interesting enough to put in the trailer to sway my opinion on this movie, which is what a trailer is supposed to do.
That's right, it stinks!
It's so bad that even the critics who typically shill for these movies can't deny it anymore. I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I would venture to say that most of the people who are going to see this movie are going because they're invested in the MCU and not necessarily in the Eternals. So let me know what you thought about all this in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.